Austin Forsyth and Joanna Duggar appeared to have it all from the outside. Their union had always been portrayed as the ideal scenario. Two young people with strong religious convictions, creating a lovely family while being protected by tradition. They served as a role model for love, faith, and family values to their online following. Every picture they uploaded and every video they shared was brimming with joy, sunshine, and the seeming unbreakable peace. However, actual life rarely resembles the images that people share online. The laughter, in fact, had been waning for months. Their home's peaceful areas got longer, but they were tense in ways neither of them could identify. Austin was constantly occupied. He worked early at building sites, stayed late at night with customers, and substituted his phone's hum for genuine talks at the dinner table. Joanna, who used to be proud of his dedication to his job, started to feel lonely. She had a long day. She felt like she was vanishing because of the kids, the housekeeping, and the constant demands from both sides of their families. Her parents always asked how Austin was doing politely when they called. "How is the marriage going? Do you two still attend the same church?" Joy would pretend everything was normal while grinning over the phone. It was simpler to pretend than to describe the emptiness she occasionally felt. Although he was aware of her gap, Austin was unsure of how to close it. He wasn't cruel. He was just preoccupied and living in a society where giving seemed more significant than relating. She was simply exhausted, he assured himself, and every marriage had its ups and downs. However, he sensed that something between them was subtly crumbling. It was wavering like thin glass, where it had once felt so robust. The roughest times were at night. Although they shared a bed, there was a profound quiet between them that nearly sounded. Joy used to feel so alive when she was in love, but now she felt so little. Sometimes she would lie awake and stare at the ceiling. She wanted to talk to him and express her feelings, but every time she tried, it ended in conflict or miscommunication. He retreated more and more as she attempted to clarify. But nothing changed on social media. They shared family vacations, grinned for the camera, and captioned photos with words of appreciation and blessings. Thousands of likes and countless comments on how great they looked together showed how much their fans adored it. However, Joy was aware that those likes no longer accurately represented her reality. She felt that every post was a lie she had to live with. Her relatives became aware of the shift. Her mother, Michelle, made one attempt to inquire quietly if she was all right. Joy had swallowed back her tears and nodded hastily. The Duggars disliked fighting in public, whether it be in marriage, the family, or their beliefs. Issues were to be resolved in private, in silence, and in prayer. Joy, though, had started to feel as though her prayers were echoing off the walls. Austin remained constant throughout it all, dependable, stable, but aloof. He believed that avoiding difficult conversations was a sign of strength, and that quiet indicated stability. Joy believed that the slowest kind of heartbreak was quiet. Weeks became months, and days became weeks. Their distance from one another increased to the point where it seemed as though two strangers shared a home and were acting to please one another. Neither of them dared to acknowledge it yet, but it was the beginning of the end. The peaceful separation between Joanna and Austin became more intense and jagged as the months passed. The sound of two people clinging to something that was already collapsing replaced the previous silence. Joy made an effort to occupy herself. To keep her mind occupied, she put herself into taking care of the children, cleaning the house, and making little videos for her fans. But the pain in her chest persisted no matter how many smiles she contrived. On certain mornings, she would sit by the kitchen window and watch the sun rise, feeling as if her life were taking place someplace else and she was merely observing it. Austin, on the other hand, had become icier. His tolerance had run its course, but he didn't mean to be harsh. Every discussion appeared to end in miscommunication. He referred to what Joy described as loneliness as complaining. He referred to what she called neglect as busyness. Their words no longer met in the middle. Instead, they clashed, leaving only pain in their wake. The nights grew intolerable. They argued softly at first, then loudly. occasionally about little issues like finances, schedules, or parenting choices, but the underlying issue was more serious. What they no longer felt was more important than what they stated. The once natural relationship felt strained and artificial, as if they had to pretend it still existed. Joy started to retreat even further. She began visiting her parents' house, where she found solace in her brother's well-known pandemonium. Even yet, she was unable to avoid the rumors, the worry in her mother's eyes, and the questions she refused to address. The family as a whole held marriage in high regard and fought for it no matter what. Joy, though, was sick of fighting by herself. The night that made all the difference then arrived. It began as another dispute, with abrasive remarks that went deeper than either party had anticipated. Joy accused him of never being there, and Austin accused her of not being appreciative. One of the children began to wail as their voices reverberated throughout the house. Joy was totally broken by that sound. She shook as she moved away from him, recognizing the harm already done by their quiet. Austin didn't say goodbye before leaving early for work the following morning. Sitting on the edge of the bed, Joy gazed at the vacant area next to her. She came to see that history and fear of being judged were the only things holding them together now, not love. And what was already gone could not be saved by either. Joy made a choice that week that nobody in her family ever anticipated. She made a lawyer's call. She made the decision to put serenity above appearances for the first time in her life. When Joanna Duggar decided to leave the marriage, a series of events began that neither she nor Austin could have completely predicted. The public was going to witness what had been a private battle within their home. The complicated divorce proceedings resulted from profound trust breaches that had developed over years, not only from issues of money or custody. Joy's goals were to protect her children, herself, and the life that had been slipping away from her for so long. However, Austin reacted angrily and confusedly after being caught off guard. The walls of their house, the very foundation he had proudly created, were about to fall apart faster than he had thought possible. Joy's accusations against Austin caused the situation to worsen. The action was taken legally to protect her and her children, not out of retaliation but out of need. After Austin was arrested by the police, the Duggar family, who had hitherto kept their personal problems to themselves, had to deal with an uncontrollable media frenzy. Joanna had an odd mixture of relief and grief. She was relieved that she was now in charge of her life. Sorrow because she never thought love would end this way, in terror in court cases, and in front of millions of people. Social media exploded, splitting people's views and analyzing every aspect of their family, relationship, and decisions. Joy held on to her kids through it all. She concentrated on their sense of security, contentment, and normalcy. But beneath her feet, the society she had grown up in, a world of devotion, family, and faith, was changing. Although friends and family provided support, criticism swiftly followed, serving as a reminder that there are costs associated with living in public. Joy understood that things would never be the same again. Instead of ending in reconciliation, the once-forever marriage had ended in conflict, court cases, and public scrutiny. Quietly and discreetly, she lamented the loss of not only her marriage but also the life she had dreamed of. Below the heartache, however, was a little glimmer of optimism that one day she might be able to rebuild, not as a wife in a failing marriage, but as a mother, a woman, and someone who had finally found her voice. Following the court cases and public attention, Joanna Duggar's life started to take on a new rhythm that was more subdued, quiet, and achingly honest. There was relief and lingering sadness when the divorce was finalized, and a chapter of her life was formally closed. She devoted her days to her kids, establishing rituals that provided security and comfort. Every goodnight story and little giggle served me a reminder that, despite heartbreak, life could go on. Joy understood that being strong meant standing tall after a shattered marriage had fallen apart, not trying to keep it together. The Duggar family came together to support her while acknowledging her need for autonomy. The ordinary struggles of parenthood, the home, and re-establishing trust in both herself and the individuals she allowed close to her increasingly overshadowed the media attention. Meanwhile, Austin Forsyth had to confront his own path. He was forced to face the decisions that had brought him to this moment by the sobering legal repercussions of his actions. A marriage that had once promised everything but instead taught them lifelong lessons left them both permanently altered. Joanna discovered a peaceful sort of calm in her new life. She gave herself permission to love without fear, to cry without shame, and to dream again. Dreams that were based on her own fortitude and her kids' well-being rather than on what other people thought she should do. The tale ultimately had little to do with controversy, social media, or public opinion. It was about tenacity, survival, and the silent fortitude of a mother who resisted losing herself. Although life had been shattered, Joanna started to reassemble it into something genuine, one that was based on love, truth, and hope for the future rather than outward appearances. Joanna had no idea what the days following the divorce would be like. The society she had known, with its meticulously manicured smiles, familial customs, and public acclaim, felt strangely liberated and alien at the same time. She had to deal with the real difficulties of raising her kids by herself every morning, but she also had to deal with the unseen burden of criticism, rumors, and public scrutiny that spread more quickly than she could react. But in the middle of all of this, she learned something she had never completely grasped before: the silent, unwavering strength of her own fortitude. Making breakfast while soothing her kids, planning school timetables, managing legal documents, and negotiating relationships with her extended family were all little victories every day. Despite being everyday occurrences, these moments had exceptional meaning. They served as evidence that life persisted despite its destruction. In ways that might not have been feasible in the midst of a failing marriage, Joanna's bond with her kids grew closer. She discovered she could be more present, more empathetic, and more attentive than she had previously thought. Marital strife no longer dominated the relationship she developed with them. Every embrace, bedtime tale, and instance of shared laughter turned into a thread in a healing tapestry, gradually reassembling the threads that had been ripped by dread and disappointment. The world gazed in fascination outside her home. News headlines, internet debates, and social media conversations all tried to characterize her, to paint her as a rebel or a victim, a failing wife or mother. Joanna, however, gradually stopped hearing the sound. She came to see that healing was about what she felt, what she knew, and what she decided to do going forward, not what other people thought. Despite being disturbed by the incident, her family served as a mirror and a shield. In addition to providing her with understanding, counsel, and support, they had her face difficult realities about marriage, trust, and personal limits. Through this introspection, Joanna started to re-establish herself as a woman with agency, voice, and ambitions of her own, rather than merely as a Duggar daughter, wife, or mother caught in the shadow of other people's expectations. Additionally, Joanna sought assistance in ways she had never done before. She was able to negotiate the emotional maze created by years of stress and strife with the aid of counseling, therapy, and candid discussions about her trauma and anxieties. She learned that asking for help was not a sign of weakness, that vulnerability and strength could coexist, and that forgiveness, not for Austin but for herself, was a crucial first step in taking back her life. Joanna started to welcome a future she could at last call her own as the months stretched into a year. She focused on her passions, began modest initiatives for herself, and even made contact with friends and relatives she had drifted away from over time. Although it still played a role in her story, the past, with all of its hurt and treachery, no longer determined how she lived. Joanna discovered that there was promise in fresh starts, courage in solitude, and beauty in imperfection. She came to see that love can be found in oneself as well as in others, that the greatest lessons in life are frequently encapsulated in adversity, and that courage is not the absence of fear but the choice to go forward in spite of it. Ultimately, the Joanna Duggar tale was not about a scandalous marriage, the media frenzy, or the police involvement. It was about rebirth, metamorphosis, and survival. It was about assembling the fragments of a shattered existence into something more robust, genuine, and profoundly her own. She overcame heartache and hardships to emerge not defeated but reborn as a woman, a mother, and a survivor who can script her own destiny without the constraints of the past. The collapse, public disputes, and news headlines may have been caught on camera, but the real tale behind the scenes was one of quiet fortitude, optimism, and resiliency, a reminder that the sun may rise again even after the most dire storms.